afternoon, everyone. I'm Gene Soroka, Executive Director at the Port of Los Angeles. It's my privilege to be here today. My first introduction is the 42nd Mayor of the great city of Los Angeles, Eric Garcetti.
All right, thanks, Gene. Thank you, Gene. That's the best introduction I've ever received. Exactly. Short speeches win elections. Well, a very good morning, everybody, and what a joy it is to be here with Congresswoman Barragan and my brother Mayor Robert Garcia, with two incredible port directors, both with Gene and Mario Cordero, and a dear, dear friend who I am so proud is leading this nation's comeback for our workers, for our economic health. Former mayor, but you're never a former mayor, our new Secretary of Labor, Marty Walsh. And I know his Deputy Secretary, Julie Sue, is here as well. Welcome back. Great to have you back in Los Angeles, another dear friend. Long before either of us were in these government positions, we were friends. So thank you so much. And thank you to everybody for coming here today. I think that the world's attention and the nation's attention has been in the San Pedro harbor, where the twin ports of LA and Long Beach are now the busiest container ports in the world. We're seeing that the global economy, in the midst of a global pandemic, has been stretched thin when it comes to labor, when it comes to our health, and when it comes to our economic activity. But thanks to the hard work and commitment of this team and of our longshore workers, who are working around the clock, as well as so many other people in warehouses and driving trucks, we've succeeded in moving record-breaking cargo through these terminals behind me. Secretary Walsh, thank you for your leadership and for President Biden's focus, together with an Angelino who happens to serve as the vice president as well, because she married an LA boy, so we claim her too, Kamala Harris. But this administration has stepped up in a way in my years as a mayor and a local official I have never seen before, getting ahead of the curve, thinking through everything from labor and training, real estate, logistics, the entire supply chain, in order to look at those global issues that have impacted our port. Now, as I was just telling a reporter, this is about private sector inefficiencies. A lot of people say, government, figure out how to fix this. But to be clear, neither Mayor Garcia nor I operate a single crane. We don't lease any of this land. We don't have government drivers of trucks. We don't have retail stores that we own. We don't have warehouses that are ours. But we're happy to address the inefficiencies in the private sector through good policies and to work with our private sector to incentivize more efficient operations. And the port, as I mentioned, which has achieved record-breaking cargo movement in such an incredibly challenging time, we've processed nearly 11 million TEUs in the last fiscal year here in the Port of LA. Obviously, that's bigger with the Port of Long Beach as well. And this summer, when we marked a milestone number of the 10 million TEUs in a year, we were the first port in the Western Hemisphere to ever do that. So we're not seeing any signs of a slowdown. This calendar year, we're up 22% as compared to last year's cargo. And we're going to continue to collaborate with our supply chain partners. And I have good news for you in that realm today. Working with John Porcari, who's been, many of you saw last week, the Biden-Harris administration supply chain disruption task force leader when it comes to the ports, we're already making a difference. Since we announced that there would be a $100 fee for storing your containers, this land is not just a place you can park stuff free. We have seen a 37% decrease in aging cargo here at San Pedro Bay ports. Yesterday, Gene Soroka and I met with the third largest shipping line in the world. I always get the letters mixed up. CGM, CGA, CMG? CMA, CGM, out of France, where they're also adding incentives to pay people $100 to move their stuff, or $200 if you take the night shift. So it can be as much as a $300 differential, both in penalties and incentives. We hope that we'll see other private sector shippers and terminal operators follow that lead as well. Because if you can see in just a few weeks a reduction of 37%, we can probably get this cargo moving in time for people's holiday gifts and beyond. Another hopeful development, of course, which Robert Garcia and I were both able to witness, was the passage and signing of the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, which we can credit not only our president for, but Speaker Pelosi, Majority Leader Schumer, and the bipartisan members of Congress who voted for this, and Congresswoman Barragan, of course. This is a once-in-a-generation investment. Let's translate that fancy word infrastructure to real jobs. What does that mean here? In San Pedro, that means somebody who is working on the docks today, getting extra shifts, and being able to buy that present for his or her family. It means that there's a truck driver who's able to come here, put food on the table after a brutal year, in which he lost work. It means that there are people who are hiring today in retail and warehouse spaces. And we have to raise those standards as we look at this crisis as well. And in that Infrastructure and Jobs Act, there's $17 billion for ports and waterways. As you heard me say it, but I'm going to say it every single time. Since we move about 40% of America's goods, we'd love to win about 40% of that money. Let's settle for at least $5 billion of that. But we need to see that come here for long-term infrastructure, to have access to more rail operations, to have access to land that's cut off right now by train tracks, and to be able to train the next generation of workers. And we're so excited to see that $150 million planned training center here will get Angelenos ready for the jobs of the future. So thank you all for your dedication here at America's Ports. Muy brevemente también, la administración Biden ha tomado un paso importante para abordar el tema de problemas de la cadena de suministro global que han impactado a nuestro puerto. Gracias al personal increíble y este equipo increíble, especialmente el secretario Walsh y a nuestros estibadores especialmente, el puerto ha logrado un cargo récord en un momento increíble, desafiante. Y hemos reducido el cargo aquí en el puerto por 37% en estas semanas recientes. Gracias al liderazgo de mi hermano alcalde Garcia también en Long Beach, pero este es importante no solamente por Los Ángeles, pero por toda la gente en los Estados Unidos. Back to you, Gene. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Garcetti. And in addition, just two clarifying comments, and very important to underscore what the mayor just said. Since we instituted a penalty for long-aging containers, the number of ships at anchor has decreased by more than 40% over a 4-week period. So we're working down the backlog, moving more cargo off the docks, thanks to the leadership of Ramon Ponce de Leon, the ILW workforce. The second thing is, and very clarifying, very important, we have not collected a nickel of that penalty yet. We've put it out there to motivate people, and it has done just that. And our intention was from the very beginning that we hope this is a miserable failure, because if we don't collect that nickel, that means cargo's moving out of this port. Next up is the executive director at the Port of Long Beach, Mario Cordero. And the Twin Ports this year will move more than 20 million container units through our complex. The next closest port in the United States does less than half of that. Couldn't do it without my friend Mario Cordero.
Thank you so much, Gene. And as he's said it very, very eloquently, this is the nation's largest container gateway, the most important, strategic, significant gateway. And for that reason, we want to thank the administration, President Biden, and Secretary Welch for being here. And again, the bottom line to what you're seeing here is this port complex, the San Pedro Bay complex, has never closed, not one day, despite the disruption, the radical disruption brought upon by the health pandemic, COVID-19. So I think with the Secretary being here, there's one important component that despite the challenges of the global supply chain, this is not just a USA issue, or for that matter, a Southern California issue, it's a global supply disruption. Here, at this nation's largest port complex, labor has made the difference to move that number that Gene just referenced, 20 million TEUs for 2021. And we've been able to do that because of the dedication and the focus of the men and women who work on the docks here, the truck drivers, the people in the warehouses. And again, I'm very much appreciative that Secretary Welch has indicated that, number one, this is so important to acknowledge the American workforce. Because for us as a country, the strength of a middle class, again, is dependent on the strength of the American worker. And you have witnessed here today that these 20 million TEUs, there's men and women behind this. And with that, I want to appreciate the IOW, the truck drivers, the warehouse workers, and more importantly, the leadership of we have the two mayors here, Mayor Garcetti and Garcia, who understood this from the very beginning in terms of the emphasis that we have to have here at this very important complex. So with that, Mr. Secretary, very much appreciate that you're visiting the nation's largest port complex, and the innovation and the vision that we have here, not only to continue to be the gateway of significance here, but a gateway that appreciates all the stakeholders, particularly labor, and how effective they have been here in moving this very important commerce for the benefit of California, but also for the benefit of the nation. Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you, Mario. Appreciate your comments. And next up is the 28th mayor of the great city of Long Beach and our friend Robert Garcia.
Thank you. It's always great to be here in the city of Los Angeles at the Port of LA. I want to first just thank the secretary, the deputy secretary, for being here, both in Los Angeles and on their way to Long Beach here in just a minute. And I want to just thank them for their attention to our congestion challenges we've had here at the ports. There are long-time challenges that we have had, certainly exacerbated by the pandemic. From day one, the Biden-Harris administration, the Department of Labor, the Department of Transportation have been involved with the entire team to ensure that we have here locally the resources to move cargo in and out of our ports and across America. Like was said before, 40% of America's cargo comes into these ports, and so we're very grateful of the progress that's been made. I want to note one thing. One of the big things that we heard, and I know that Mayor Garcetti heard this, is we want to make sure that community wanted to make sure that there be enough Christmas presents in our stores, on our shelves, and that folks would get what they wanted, what they ordered online into their homes. And the truth is that has been accomplished. Stores are full, supply is in place, and I think the ports, along with our business partners, have done a great job of ensuring that goods are here for the holidays. And I think that's really important. And I want to thank the Secretary and the entire team for that assistance. The second thing I'll mention is we're also at this moment where we have an amazing opportunity because of the bipartisan infrastructure bill that was adopted, and in large part, thank you to the leadership of Congresswoman Barragan. We now have an opportunity to invest significantly into West Coast ports. And traditionally, West Coast ports have not received the same level of attention or investment that East Coast ports have received. But now that we have so many folks and support from our community involved at the White House, certainly with the Secretary's support and others, we're very confident we're going to get our fair share here to our ports of Long Beach and Los Angeles. Let me just say briefly in Spanish que es bien importante para nosotros. Yo sé que el alcalde Garcetti, para mí también, que haya los regalos para Navidad, que las tiendas tengan lo que necesitan para que gente pueda comprar los regalos que ellos quieren para sus familias. Lo bueno es que acá en los puertos todo ha llegado, las tiendas tienen los regalos y va a ser una Navidad muy buena para toda la familia. Muchas gracias. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Garcia. And now next up, representing the 44th District of the United States House of Representatives, Nanette Barragan.
Thank you all for being here today. I want to welcome Secretary Walsh for being here and making it a point to come to America's Port and the LA Long Beach complex. The bipartisan infrastructure bill is a jobs bill. It is about creating jobs, and it's about making sure that the economy is coming strong because of COVID and what we've seen. And let's also be clear on why we're seeing the supply chain issues. Infrastructure has been outdated. We have neglected to invest in infrastructure in the past. Combine that with COVID-19, and that's part of why we have seen this rising demand in goods and the inability to respond as quickly. But thanks to the Biden-Harris administration, the Congress, in passing the Infrastructure and Jobs Bill, we're going to see historic investments in our ports and infrastructure to modernize our ports, to invest in rail, and to invest in the ability to move the supply chain as quickly as possible. And we have seen the results in just a short amount of time of the Biden-Harris administration stepping up, working together. And I think it's so important that we are all working together in collaboration. We have here Secretary Walsh from the administration with the mayors. It's the local, it's the state, it's the federal, all working together, rowing in the same direction to making sure we are addressing these issues. And we know that what we're seeing by seeing our ships off the coast here are also causing impacts to our local communities, like health impacts, which is why we've got to get Build Back Better agenda across the finish line. Now, the House has done its job, and now we're waiting on the Senate. But there are critical investments and historic investments there into making sure the ports also have funding to go zero emissions, something that my bill, the Climate Smart Port Bill, is included to make sure we're getting money back to our ports. And so there is a lot of work to do. There's also quite a bit of dollars in the Build Back Better to invest in workforce training, something I know the Secretary is committed to, and something that we are really proud that he's here to see the port so that he can see the importance of the ports to our country, to the economy, to GDP, and why we have to invest in workers here, because that is also, as he likes to say, an investment in infrastructure. So I'm looking forward to working and collaborating with all our partners to doing what we can for our ports and getting our fair share of dollars here at the LA complex. Thank you.
Thank you, Congresswoman. And it is because of these two mayors, the Congresswoman and Deputy Secretary Julie Su, that the ports of Long Beach and Los Angeles have been able to forge strong relationships with the Biden-Harris administration and the cabinet-level members that represent that administration. Next up is the 29th United States Secretary of Labor, Marty Walsh.
Thank you very much, Gene. You're really good with numbers here. I can see that today, so keep it up. I just want to, first of all, I want to say thank you for having us here today. And on behalf of myself and Deputy Secretary Julie Su, we want to thank you for the tour today, Gene and Mario, and the meetings we've had already today. I want to give a shout out to the LA Port Police for taking us out on the harbor today on an unbelievable tour as we went around the harbor today. To Mayor Garcia, thank you for hosting us today as well. And along with Mayor Garcia, I'm going to talk about you in a minute. And Congresswoman Barragan, thank you very much, not just for being here today, but for really leading the way in the bipartisan infrastructure bill and really working towards the $17 billion that's in there for ports. And the Congresswoman grabbed me inside. She leaned into me here. There's a lot of pressure on you to make sure a good portion of the money comes here to California. So we got to make sure that happens somehow, and I'll work on that. I want to thank you. To my dear friend, Mayor Garcetti, we both got elected mayor the same time in 2014. He got elected a few months before me. And over the last 7-8 years, we've been going back and forth, giving each other a hard time during different football seasons and baseball seasons. And quite honestly, that one of the happiest days of his life, I think he texted me right after you signed our center fielder, Mookie Betts. And now that I'm here in LA in front of all these TV cameras, Mookie, it's time to come home. You've done your job here in LA. We want you back in Boston. But Mayor Garcetti, thank you for your friendship. Thank you for all that you do, not just as a leader on the national stage, but the international stage with climate mayors and all the great things you've done. So thank you very much. I also want to give a shout out to labor leaders, labor community, the ILWU that's here today. I think the Teamsters might be here and some of the other labor organizations that are here. Thank you for the amazing work that you've done. And I had a chance to see firsthand the dangerous work that the members do here every day, loading and unloading ships. And it's not easy work, it's hard work. We talked a lot about earlier today about supply chain and cutting back on the supply chain and putting lots of hours in. And the members that work on these piers and these docks are the ones that do the work. And we might talk about it and how we're going to make it faster, how we're going to move it along. But it's the workers every single day that come out here and do the work. So I want to thank you. You are definitely the definition of essential worker. In the last 20 months, we've talked about that. You've come through in a big way over the past few weeks for all the American people all across this country. So again, I want to say thank you. I'm here today because ports are essential to our nation's economy and certainly our nation's workforce. I visited several ports in the last couple of months here in the country. The port here in LA and Long Beach are the busiest in the nation and among the biggest in the world. They not only support good jobs here in California, they make jobs possible and economic activity all across the United States of America. President Biden's economic plan has produced a historic economic recovery. We've seen at least 5.6 million jobs return to the workplace. New unemployment claims are at the lowest in over 50 years. And unemployment has fallen to 4.6%. That's 2 years ahead of all the projections. This is a worker-centered recovery, and we are focused on what's going to make working families and what working families need. So when the pandemic caused the supply chain issues, this administration, the Biden-Harris administration, moved quickly and boldly to resolve them. The President's Action Plan for America's Ports and Waterways is a key effort. We invest in our ports with new and more flexible grant funding. We brought together leaders like the ones you see here today from our ports, employers, labor unions, as well as retailers, grocery stores, and other industry. Working together, we've seen the results, we've gotten results. In November, the number of containers sitting on the docks fell by 40%. Gene talked about it, Mayor Garcetti talked about it, Mayor Garcia talked about it. Shipping prices went down by 25%. Americans saw full grocery stores during Thanksgiving. We saw full shelves on Black Friday. They're ordering online with confidence, and will be able to get to the goods they need and what people need throughout the whole holiday season. I want to thank everyone for their efforts. But I'm also here because of our commitment to the ports and supply chains go far beyond the holiday season. In our conversations today, we're talking about immediate issues. We're also talking about strategies for long-term resilience. We have a historic opportunity right in front of us. As was mentioned several times today, the President's bipartisan infrastructure law invests $17 billion in our ports and waterways. And it's matched by investments in transportation, power grid, water systems, and broadband. By modernizing our infrastructure, we're going to be able to get the goods to consumers, to the factories with more consistency and efficiency than ever before in our country's history. We're going to be able to outcompete China and lead the world in competition. And we're going to be able to create good jobs here in California and all across the country. To me, good jobs, good paying jobs is the key. Our focus is on high quality union and middle class jobs. The jobs that support families and support local economies. And that's what you're seeing here at the Port of LA and Long Beach. And that's what we're working for in our infrastructure investments throughout our supply chain and all across our economy. At the Department of Labor, we're investing in job training and registered apprenticeships to help get more workers prepared for good jobs and in-demand jobs. We'll focus on access for women and workers of color and low-wage workers who were shut out in the past. We're supporting the workers who provide the child care, elder care, and health care that every family needs and deserves in our country. And we're making sure that every single worker has the rights and protections that they deserve. This administration is committed to addressing the challenges that working families face every single day in our country. You've seen that in the President's bold action to bring down gas prices. You've seen it throughout the Build Back Better agenda that the House passed earlier this month. Thank you, Congressman, for passing that piece of legislation. It will lower the cost of child care, elder care, health care, and education. It will cut taxes for working families and reduce child poverty. And it will allow us to make high-quality job training available to many more workers who want it and who need it. We've seen proof this year. Whenever workers are strong, well-trained, well-supported, the supply chain is more resilient. We've also seen this time the President can bring America together to achieve great things. So I want to thank you once again and everyone at the Port of LA and Long Beach who's part of this effort. And now we'll be happy, any of us will be happy to answer a few questions if you have any. I think the solution lies, Gene talked about, everyone talked about it. You're seeing the solution every day here on the port. You're seeing the ships come in. You're seeing the ships being unloaded. We were just out on the harbor a minute ago, and we went around to one of the ports on the backside, and I saw crane operators taking the goods off the ship. I saw truck drivers driving the goods out of the yard, and I've seen a lot of work happening here. So I think that this is a very complicated operation that's behind me here, and I think we're seeing a lot of good progress happening.
Mr. Secretary,
Okay.
What are they saying is positive factor, and what are they saying will fix food?
March of 2020, I was sitting in my office in City Hall, and I had to make some decisions that I thought I'd never have to make. The two mayors behind me had to make the same thing. We had to shut down our cities. We had to shut down basically industry, schools, and restaurants, and businesses, and people were working from home. What's causing this is we're living in a global pandemic. And I think we can't lose sight of that. And I think we have to remember that the supply chain issue is not just simply about unloading ships here in the harbor. It's also about filling containers in other parts of the world that also shut down factories. And I think as we continue to move forward here, as we continue to get more people vaccinated, as we continue to come through this, we will be stronger.
I was hoping, Mr. Secretary, you could speak about just modernization. For years, as we've been covering the ports, there have been a lot of back and forth about we need to modernize. Now, you need to give us some pushback because that could mean some loss of jobs. Talk briefly about the importance of making sure that these ports are modern, because, as we understand, modernization can also equalize and equal efficiency.
Well, I think we have to make sure these ports are efficient and they're working quickly. And as we went around, we saw one port with a little more little more technology than another port. And we're going to have some meetings later on today as we continue here in the city. I'm going to be sitting with the union in a little while. I'm going to be sitting with the companies a little while, talking about. I don't know if there's a balance, but making sure it's more efficient. And I see Mayor Garcetti over my left shoulder, so I'm going to let him come to the microphone because he's loaded with stats.
So we're spending about $1 million just in the Port of Los Angeles, $1 million a day, 365 days a year since I've been mayor on modernization. So it's a great question, and modernization is very important. But modernization isn't always just between automation and good human being. I think our ILWU workers will tell you they welcome test back, head to head with an automated port and the work that they can do. They'll beat it every single time. They've shown that in many places. But modernization means all sorts of things. It means making sure we have the latest cranes to be able to have the capacity for the bigger ships. It means that we can plug those ships in so we can reduce the pollution. It means training workers to have new jobs as technology changes. And he's very modest, but Gene Soroka led this nation and this world on predictive technology that's being implemented here and in Long Beach so that we know what those containers are before they come in and we know how to get the right truck to that right container. So we're doubling down on modernization. It's not always, though, just about automation and not. It's those other things, too.
Mr. Secretary, you talked about infrastructure, about getting things in, but the Biden administration doesn't seem to be focusing on the key point. They're bringing stuff in from China, an 8,000-mile link. They are producing the things that we are buying. The administration is going to be talking to major corporations here to flat out tell them we don't want to be put in this situation anymore. Bring the jobs back here.
Well, the president's been very clear. Earlier this year, he launched his Buy American, Build American Here program. And certainly I'm part of a task force at the White House where we're talking about bringing more opportunities for manufacturing here in the United States of America. In the Build Back Better infrastructure bill, the law, and also the let me get this right, the Build Back Better infrastructure law and the Build Back Better bill that's going on here. I might have screwed those up, but you can figure that out. We are working towards bringing more manufacturing jobs to the United States of America. I think part of the reason why we're having this conversation today about supply chain is that for far too long we've been too dependent on foreign investment, foreign imports, and we need to do some of that here in the United States of America. And the president has been focused on that.
You intend to go ahead and get those corporations and to hit them with tariffs, which is the only thing that's going to bring them back here.
I'm not going to talk about tariffs, but I am going to talk about, certainly myself and Secretary Raimondo have been working very closely with the White House and working with companies about creating more opportunities here. I think a lot of companies realize now that building in America is important moving forward. I was at a groundbreaking in Ohio a few months ago for Solar, which is building a solar manufacturing facility here in the United States of America in Toledo, Ohio. And the glass for those manufacturings are made in a few towns over. So there is success stories here. We just have to be more intentional. It's been talked about for a long time, but in past administrations, but President Biden is laser focused on making sure we're building more here in the United States of America for our own use.
What are your concerns about the upcoming labor talks for the new contract, and is the administration pushing a one-year extension in light of what's going on here?
I've had some conversations as a person who negotiated a contract on the labor side, and as a person who's negotiated a contract on the other side as a mayor. There's still I think there's 7 or 8 months left in the contract. So I'm certainly not concerned about it today. And when the two sides sit down, I've always encouraged people, whether it's the union or companies, to sit down, have open conversations, open dialogue, because it is important to continue to move forward here. Certainly, I know a lot of people are concerned about the lingering whatever it is down the road, but I certainly have full faith and confidence that the union and the company can both sit at a table and work out an agreement.
Are you meeting with both sides?
I meet with everybody. I mean, any side there's possibly a side I can meet with. I'm going to meet. Yeah, because again, as I'm here, I'm learning a lot about. I mean, I've learned a lot in the last couple of months, but in my old job as mayor, I was saying this to Mayor Garcetti. I know that and Garcia, as mayors, the ports are in their jurisdictions, within their jurisdictions. As the city of Boston, the port is run by an authority governed by the governor. So I'm still just learning the different pieces.
What role do you feel like the White House has in the union or the labor negotiations coming
quite honestly, we don't have a role. I don't think the White House has a role. I mean, I think at some point, if we get to a point in any negotiation across the country, if the two sides are looking for somebody to help and step in, I certainly would offer that in any case. I've already done it as Secretary of Labor several times across the country. I'm not looking for credit for it, but if I can get both sides at the table and get an agreement done and negotiation done, then that's a great thing. I don't think we have to step in beforehand. I think it's important that, again, the union is going to, I'm sure, have things that they want to discuss around negotiation time. The company's going to want to put something on the table themselves, and I don't think, if need be, and I'm asked, I would definitely step in any time to offer my support to try and get to a resolution. I don't think we're here at that point right now.
Mr. Secretary, I'm only assuming this is your first visit to the port. Am I correct in assuming that in this area?
First visit as Secretary to the port and actually focusing on the port.
I just was wondering if you could, in your own words, just take your takeaway. You were able to see it. I mean, for someone who sees it for the first time, it's quite the operation. What is your initial takeaway? And I know you'll have more throughout the day, but I'd just like to hear it in your own words.
Absolutely amazing. When you think of the logistical operations that happen here in this port, with so many different moving pieces and the ability to unload supplies and get the empty containers back on the ship, it really is amazing. And I was telling Mayor Garcetti a second ago, I think there's 49 miles of waterway here that ports are on. I was mayor of the city of Boston, that 47 miles of waterway. So if you took this entire operation and dropped it in the harbor, Boston Harbor, that would take up the entire operation. We think it's massive, and really impressed with the operations. And quite honestly, having conversations, I spoke to the union, I spoke to the company, I spoke to everyone today, and the respect that everyone has for each other, and they might have disagreements on how to do certain things. I find that's really important, particularly right now. The first question was about inconsistency or concern about a lot of different moving pieces. The fact that we were just in a boardroom a minute ago and hearing everyone work on the same page to do the same thing, to move our supply chain to the goods and services for the people of America, that's very encouraging to hear.
Right, we have time for one more question.
Is there any space on the labor agenda for the potential workers that can help to rebuild this infrastructure that we have been talking about?
Yeah.
And also to substitute those workers that can go up in the economic life?
Yeah, let me just quickly say, and I'm going to have Mayor Garcetti close this out. Certainly, I've always been a supporter of finding a pathway for legalization for undocumented immigrants in our country. I think there's definitely an opportunity at this moment in time to create that pathway. In the Build Back Better bill that's making its way through Congress, does have some provisions for immigration in there, and I think it's time that we have a major conversation about immigration reform. The President filed legislation to push this forward, and I think now is the right time to do that. I'm going to turn it over to Eric, Mayor Garcetti.
I'll just say brevemente, ¿en español prefieres? Muchos de los trabajadores en este proceso, en los warehouses, en los conductores de los truques, son personas sin papeles. Hay regulaciones en el puerto, es difícil para estas personas a tener trabajo aquí, pero esta economía depende en estas personas, y con legislación a nivel federal tendremos más trabajadores, más oportunidades para prosperar aquí en Los Ángeles, y a tener más personas que en estos puntos muy difíciles ellos pueden venir y asistirnos con estos problemas. Por eso es muy importante pasar Build Back Better. El Senado deben pasar y es mi esperanza que el parlamentarian del Senado nos dará una decisión donde la reforma de inmigración pueden ser un parte de esta legislación crítica. Sí. Cada día en el puerto de Los Ángeles tenemos más de $1 millón en inversiones para modernizar. Okay, I'll start again. Cada día para modernizar este puerto tenemos más de $1 millón. Cada día, 365 días cada año, Y estas inversiones, más de miles de millones de dólares para los trabajadores, para la tierra y las facilidades, y también por los procesos de este puerto. Este es muy importante porque hay otros puertos y nosotros queremos el negocio aquí en Los Ángeles y Long Beach. Gracias.
And thank you for Julie Sue.